Welcome to Ghostly.
Are exorcisms real?
As always, we're your host. I'm Pat.
And I'm Rebecca.
Today's a very special episode, right?
Yes.
I mean, we finally get to the debating of exorcisms.
It's taken us a while.
It has taken us a while.
We've done a lot.
And I have to admit that I'm a little nervous about this episode. I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to land at the end. I do have some thoughts to talk about in the debate section that I wrote down, but other than that, I'm struggling with my skepticism on this one. How about you, Rebecca?
Yeah, I am also struggling.
With my skepticism?
With your skepticism, it is unnerving. I'm not used to that. No. Or with your unsuredness of your skepticism. But I will say I keep going back and forth as well. There's, it's like you'll read one thing that makes you think one thing, and then another thing that makes you think another thing, and there's a lot to wade through on this one.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everyone that Ghostly was asked to do another live episode, and we will be headlining and hosting the first day of the Southside Podfest. That'll be at Lawler's on Archer, which is in the south side of Chicago.
On the outskirts, like pretty close to the border, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still the south side, though.
It is. Oh, very much. It's a good neighborhood. I mean, it's fine. It's not.
Safe.
I know people think south side
I'll take a bullet
Chicago.
for people if I need to. And that'll be on November 6th, and it's free to come watch us.
What time does it start again?
The whole event starts at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Because we will be hosting those other podcasts. We will be kicking them off. We will be announcing. We'll be the MCs of the night.
Yeah.
That's the best term for that.
There you go.
Because we're not actually hosting other people's podcasts.
No. But yeah.
We'll be MCing them.
Yep.
Also, I wanted to point out one other thing. Do you know what this episode marks?
I think I do, but I'll let you say it.
Yeah, so this is our Halloween episode, right?
Yes.
So that's exciting. But that makes it our anniversary episode as well. Because we started last year on Halloween.
Yeah. So tomorrow, technically, if you're listening to this, is our 1-year Ghostly anniversary.
You might be listening to it on our anniversary.
Yeah.
Ghostly turns 1. Isn't that amazing?
I mean, I can't believe how far we've come over the year.
Yes.
In 1 year.
1 year.
We've grown so far beyond my wildest dreams of how far we could go.
I thought just me and you were going to listen to this.
Yeah, and like maybe a couple of friends if we begged them enough.
If we forced them into it, yeah, pretty much.
Guilted them enough.
So we want to thank you for listening to us and to let you know that we have a lot more in store for you for our second year of Ghostly. So keep listening, and we're going to keep delivering. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Absolutely. So many exciting ideas.
Right?
Yeah.
Starting off with November being our clown month. I can't wait. Because we have Nick Mataragas that is coming on our first episode, which will be at the live Podfest. If you want to see it live.
Yeah, you can watch us record it.
Do you know why we have Nick on?
I do.
Why?
Because he played... Okay, so any of you that watch Ghost Adventures, which I have a feeling a lot of our listeners do.
Yeah.
They recently did an episode at Joliet Prison on John Wayne Gacy.
Oh.
And our friend Nick, actually, who's going to be on the episode, played Gacy.
Yeah.
In the episode.
As a clown and not as a clown.
Yeah, he did both.
Yeah.
So it was a part of the whole episode, and it's really cool. So we're going to have him on. And you just want him there because he's your other skeptic. He's your skeptic
the only
bro.
other skeptic. Yeah. because we only have 2 skeptics.
That's it.
We've never had another skeptic on the show.
I am hoping the bar is going to help me with the skeptic, keep me, help me make some arguments.
Oh, because you think people are going to be drunk?
Well, I'm hoping that I have a crowd of believers out there.
Okay, well, I'm inviting every skeptic I know. Nick Mataragis.
There you go. Yes.
So, yeah, that's what we got going on so far already in our 2nd year. So, Rebecca, we started this new thing called Listener's Mail.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any?
We do. We're going to continue on with Frank's stories from last week.
One thing I would like to ask you, though.
Yes.
So people can send stories, right?
Right.
But can they also send feedback?
Oh, sure. Or questions.
Yeah, we might read all those on the air.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
even if you don't have a ghost story.
Yeah. Listener mail is just mail. It's not
Just
listener
mail.
story. I mean, like, we've been reading stories, but anything that's interesting, that if you want to send us a comment on an episode, or if you want to, again, ask, we started actually off with a listener question.
We did, yeah.
With angels.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So and your story also, if you do send a story, it doesn't have to be long.
No.
In fact, we prefer it not to be crazy long. That's why I have to divide them up sometimes. And then also, it doesn't have to be even a story of something that turned out to be paranormal.
Oh.
It could be a story that you thought was paranormal and then turned out to have a totally logical explanation.
Right? Yeah.
Because I do want to represent
both sides
of
want
our
to represent
podcast.
my side?
Yeah. So if you've got a fun
Wow.
story that you thought it was something crazy and then it turned out you did find out what it was, like that's still fun to hear too.
Yeah. Well, you can send them right on into our email address, info@ghostlypodcast.com. You can also send them through Messenger or through a DM on social media. But there is one other way that we've never talked about.
I was thinking about this.
You can send it through the actual mail.
Yeah,
You could send it to P.O. Box number 264, and that's in Geneva, Illinois, 60134.
Yeah, I just went to check the mailbox the other day because I realized I hadn't gone for a little bit, and I was like, wow, it'd be so nice to get real mail.
Just one at least.
At least one. If you want to send us, if you go to Waverly Hills, send us a postcard.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Tell us about your experience,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
Or any other place that you go to that you think is cool. Because I will say one of my goals as we go forward, now that we've kind of made it through our first year, is hopefully to get some more listener suggested stories out there, topics, right? And
I would love that.
Yeah. And so if you want to send us any of those ideas, if you want to mail it to us, send us to it. All these other ways, that'd be so exciting.
Yeah. Again, that's P.O. Box number 264, and that's in Geneva, Illinois, 60134. And if you don't remember this or can't understand what I'm saying, because I don't understand what I'm saying half the time, you can go to ghostlypodcast.com, scroll to the very bottom, and right in the middle under Contact Us, we have all of our information right there.
Right there.
Ghostlypodcast.com, the bottom of the page.
Yep.
All right, so let's hear this story that you have.
Okay. All right. So again, this is from Frank, and this is, again, he says he hasn't really had anything, but his brother has. So this is another brother story. All right. So it says, my brother's partner usually gets up early for work and returns mid-afternoon. My brother had the day off, so he decided to take a nap. He was laying on his side facing the wall. He had fallen into a light sleep when he felt the bed sink, and it caused him to wake up. He figured it was his partner. He took a few moments to adjust his eyes before he rolled over. He saw a shadow person with glowing yellow eyes on its side facing him. So he's facing out.
So in like a reverse spoon.
Right, like you're
position,
right,
facing
like
each other.
It's facing each other, and it's like this shadow person with yellow eyes.
Wow.
Yes, he scared the living daylights out of him, and he jumped out of bed. So not sleep paralysis. I mean, he's moving. He's turning over. He's jumping out of bed. The shadow faded and left an imprint on the bed where it had been.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the story.
And I'm not allowed to debate any of these stories, so I will keep to myself.
That's up to, Frank did give you permission to do that if you wanted to debate anything, but
I'm thinking it's a kitty cat.
It's a kitty cat.
It's a kitty cat.
I think if they had a kitty cat, or if it was a kitty cat, he would have still seen the kitty cat and would have known it.
So it's a kitty cat. All right. So the next part would typically be our polls, but we haven't had a poll yet for this. But we will have one for this episode.
You got it. This is the big one.
What is the question we're going to be asking now?
Are exorcisms real?
Are exorcisms real? Just that.
Just that. Yes, no.
If you even think one exorcism is real, then you believe exorcisms are real.
Absolutely.
You would mark yes.
Yeah. I mean, just because you're saying yes doesn't mean that you think every single exorcism is real.
Yeah.
You're just saying that there are some that are.
Okay. Those are the ground rules.
Those are the ground rules.
And if you don't believe any are real, then you're on #Team Skeptic.
Right.
Which I might not be able to vote for this time.
Whoa.
We'll see. We'll see at the end. All right. So we're going to skip to our ghost story segment, which is also Rebecca.
Yes.
So tell us a ghost story.
Okay. So this one, again, is not going to be our typical ghost story where I wrote something.
Where you make it up.
Yeah. I take artistic liberties with a story.
Oh.
I actually wanted to tell another, because there's so many, I wanted to tell another exorcism story. So I don't want you to interrupt me, but you can interrupt again if you'd like, if you have any comments.
I've been specifically told that I cannot interrupt during ghost story segment.
Well, because there's like a feel, we're trying to get like a feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is not that, so it's okay.
I could be scary too,
Well, you could read the story sometime.
Ooh, we'll see.
All right. So this is actually, this particular story, I found it on a bunch of websites, but the one I'm reading from is mysteriousuniverse.org.
Of course.
And it's about a woman named Julia. So a more recent case of demonic possession occurred in 2008 and was reported in 2012 by a board-certified psychiatrist and associate professor of clinical psychiatry at New York Medical College, Dr. Richard E. Gallagher.
Oh, he's that one that all the priests go to.
He is the one that the priests go to.
So he is definitely a #team believer.
He is. We didn't start that way, but he is now. The strange story revolves around a woman known only as Julia, that's the name he gave to her, who originally came forth begging her church to help her with what she claimed was a spiritual possession, and the church went to ask for help from the psychiatric community. So the church went to the psychiatric community. While investigating Julia, Gallagher became convinced that there was more going on than mere mental illness or outright fraud. So she did all the things, right? Like obscene language, hateful rants and threats, and showed extreme repulsion to religious items. All of those things seem to have disturbed the psychiatrist a great deal. So he was disturbed by all those things. Gallagher would later say of these occurrences, so here's a quote from the psychiatrist, "Periodically in our presence, Julia would go into a trance state of a reoccurring nature. Mentally troubled individuals often dissociate, but Julia's trances were accompanied by an unusual phenomenon. Out of her mouth would come various threats, taunts, and scatological language."
Scatological? So she'd be like, bidda-ba-ba, boop-ba-diddy-ba-dee-da-doo-ba-doo.
For our younger listeners, yes,
scat?
That's exactly what that means.
That's scat, right?
Yeah, yes.
Scatological.
Phrases like, "Leave her alone, you idiot. She's ours. Leave, you imbecile priest."
That doesn't sound like scat to me.
No. Or just leave. The tone of this voice differed markedly from Julia's own, and it varied, sometimes sounding guttural and vaguely masculine, at other points high-pitched. Most of her comments during these trances or at the subsequent exorcisms displayed a marked contempt for anything religious or sacred. In addition to this, these strange voices allegedly would even intrude on phone conversations the psychiatrist was having with colleagues, defying all rational reason. In other words, like she wasn't on the phone with them. It was just like a totally separate phone conversation, but they would hear the voices that she would say. During the actual exorcism performed on Julia, the room purportedly became almost unbearably hot, and the normal, scientific, and rational Gallagher was also startled to personally witness items fly off shelves and Julia actually levitating. Julia also demonstrated personal knowledge of people in her vicinity and spoke in languages other than her own, such as Spanish and Latin. Holy water was said to affect her in violent ways, but normal water did not, even when there was no way for her to know which was which. After every one of these episodes, Julia would wake from her trance with no recollection of what had transpired, which fascinated the psychiatrist. She was eventually cleared of her seemingly demonic presence, but her account is a rare case of a professional scientist being convinced the events were real.
Okay.
Now, I also read a whole other even longer article where they interviewed Dr. Gallagher, and he said that actually she wasn't totally cleared. She called him back a few years later and claims it was back, but she didn't want help at that point because she was already dying of cancer or something.
Okay.
It was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, hey, they're back, but hey, don't worry about it.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I think we should probably take a break.
Yeah, that was kind of long.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was good.
We'll be right back.
All right.
Announcing the brand new Southside Podfest.
Southside.
4 totally free nights of live podcasts on Chicago's South Side.
Front room.
Get your earholes filled with amazing word sounds from some of the best podcasts around.
Sausage.
The Southside Podfest is November 6th, 20th, 27th, and December 4th. All at 8 p.m., all at Lawler's Bar, 6854 West Archer Avenue, Chicago.
What the hell is a podcast?
See you there!
All right, we're back. So the history is what we've already covered. We've covered a lot of history of it with the interview with David or Vox, with the exorcism of Emily Rose or Annalise Michel, and then finally The Exorcist.
Or the exorcism of Roland Doe.
Or whatever his name is, Robbie Mannheim. Sounds like a quarterback for a team or something. So that was our history, basically. So we are going to jump right into the debate now.
Yeah, let's get going.
It feels weird, but I might have a little surprise for the debate.
Okay. All right. So I've got 3 points I thought we could kind of talk about.
Okay.
That maybe encapsulate a lot of these things, including even the story that I just read.
And then surprise, today. I have one.
You have another one. Yay. Okay. So the first idea to discuss, so there are so many stories that involve a lot of people.
Yes.
I think that's what makes the exorcism stories different than the ghost stories often are.
Yeah.
Because a ghost story, it's often one person, they saw something, they experienced something, but nobody else was there. So David or Vox talked about this, where he said the things that he's experienced a lot of times have been with other people. And we saw it with both of the other stories that we talked about, right? So Annalise Michel, there were always her parents, family friends, the priests, they all saw these things. And then same thing with Roland Doe, right? There were multiple priests doing the exorcism, the family, all of that. Again, different than a typical ghost story. So I know, to me, the fact that it is these exorcisms are often seen, witnessed, experienced by multiple people over even a longer period of time makes them more believable to me.
Okay.
So what do you think?
Well, my initial thought would be that, yeah, it is seen by multiple people. And if there was like a ghost encounter that was seen by multiple people, I would definitely probably believe that more than I would believe one that's just seen by one or two. Although it has happened to us where people have told us there was multiple people that cited this ghost, and I still don't believe it somehow. with the exorcism, I'm always more prone to believe for some reason. So I'm going to take this as another approach. If exorcisms are real, and if multiple people see them, what could be an explanation for that? And the explanation that I can come up with for that would be that these are all people of faith. Let's say we were at a concert. I know you really have a thing for New Kids on the Block. So let's say we were on a New Kids on the Block concert.
Yeah, I was never an NKOTB fan.
What?
That is my age group, but no.
But let's say we were, and let's say everybody there was a Donnie fan.
I mean, he was my favorite of them if I had to pick one, like gun to my head, but yeah.
But if everybody was a Donnie fan, it's easier for people to buy into what Donnie's doing than the rest of them. So all these people are believers. All of these people believe that there is a Jesus, and more importantly, all these people believe that there's a possibility of demonic possession involved in this. So then they would equate anything that happens to this possession. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Well, and I will say on a skeptic note with this, that my thought sometimes goes to, there's that group mentality that we sometimes have where if there's one person, let's say the mother, for example, with Annalise, right, really believes that this is true, right? Then there's the strength of their conviction can kind of lead the thoughts of the people around them, maybe to be that, to feel that way. And so that there is that part of it.
Sure.
But I guess I also have read stories and like Vox's story, it doesn't necessarily seem, like when he was in the church, right? And the stuff started happening, everyone heard that all at once. And he and his friend kind of came up with this thing of this prayer. And it wasn't like there was time for that to build or, for that to happen. I guess, though, your thought of they're all believers, that kind of
that
goes
anything
with
that happens. So I don't know. It could have been, I'm not going to argue Vox's point, but it could have been like a PA was malfunctioning or something like that. But they all are believers together, and they all attribute that to then this idea of that. So, I mean, like another thing about what you were speaking of just a second ago, it's funny because I've done some comedy, and I don't always get all the laughs. Just saying. But
you get a lot of laughs, though.
But I get more when people are clumped together in one area. But, it's natural for people to go into a theater and let's say there's only 20 people in a theater that fits 100. Well, you're going to scatter out. You're going to give each other space, right? I get less laughs than when everybody is sitting in the front row and everybody's together. It actually makes for a better show.
Because the laughter's contagious?
Yeah.
Ah.
It definitely is. So, yeah, I think that having them together, it is like a contagious kind of laugh. It is like a community laugh. Maybe that could be tied in with the belief thing. All these people in a close proximity are more able to believe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Again, I'm in the middle. It's hard.
Okay.
All right, you ready for a second idea?
Of course I am.
Okay. So during all of these exorcisms, paranormal things happen. It isn't just somebody saying like, there's someone inside me. Like, it's not just that. There's levitation. They speak in languages that they don't know. The voices that come out of them are completely odd, don't sound like that person, out of range, whether too low or too high, or there's multiple voices. They'll have that aversion to holy things. We've seen that. So all of these kind of paranormal, the bed shakes, and it's interesting because a lot of times they're very similar things that happen over the years. So I don't know. What do you think about all the paranormal stuff that goes along with the exorcisms?
Well, I think that you said a lot of things in that. And I think that each thing would have its own reasoning. So the bed shaking, Thinking back to what the skeptics said about Roland Doe, those all could have been done by a teenage boy. Bed shaking could have been done from the top of the bed. Now we're looking at this through the lenses of science fiction and horror. And we're watching these movies where the bed actually levitates off the ground 5 feet. I'm sure it's not like that. I'm sure it's closer to the ground. I'm sure it's left up to somebody's beliefs. I'm sure it's left up to their perception of what is actually happening. The levitating items and stuff like that. In like the journals of the priests that were involved in the Roland one, they never said anything about it. They said that about it later on. I think it's hype. I know it seems weird, but I think that's more hype than anything. Yeah. And the languages, that was perfectly explained in one thing, especially that a lot of times they speak Latin, and a lot of these are the 70s and before the 70s. And in which case, Latin was used in church, and Latin was used in the actual exorcisms itself. So, I mean, they could be mimicking them. They say that they don't always make sense. The words don't always go together.
I know, I guess I've read enough stories where, I mean, not just the ones that we've talked about, but even within the ones we've talked about, where it just seems like that's a lot for it to have all these incidents, where people are speaking different languages, or, I mean, like, objects moving on their own. That seems like from across the room.
But as I said, those aren't things that are actually put in these people's journals. These are things that are said after the fact. These are things that are made to explain things. And like the superhuman strength that they have, that boy, Roland Doe, didn't have that. He had a normal 14-year-old's strength. Another thing, too, The Exorcist, the movie, they actually do something that's kind of funny. I don't know if you caught this in there. I did as a skeptic. I'm like, oh, they took fake holy water in there, and he used it once on her, and she acted the same as she would if it was regular holy water.
Yeah. And
that's what he said to the mother, too. He said, well, this is not real holy water.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of made me think, this is theatrics. These are people acting out. These are people that, I believe these are people that want to be special and want to, or they believe that they're special. They believe that they're different than everybody else. And in the case of Annalise, I think she was willing to die for that.
I mean, I think for me, the idea of the holy stuff, in the movie, yes, we had that time where, they faked it out. But then, I mean, it really turned out to be pretty real in the movie anyways.
But who's to say if he used regular water and said it was holy water throughout the whole service that wouldn't have had the same effect? Here's another thing, too. Why is it that in the Annalise thing, it took 67 times? Why is it that in the Roland Doe one, it took multiple times? If these words work, why don't they work the first time?
That's a part that is interesting to me. I've thought about that, because when we talked to David Vox, he was very much, no, it only takes one time.
Yeah.
You say it and it's done. Once you command or whatever you do, it's over. But every single other exorcism story that I have read that has happened in the last 100 years, even beyond that, it's not one.
But why is that?
Or it's until they get to the one that does work.
If God is the person that commands these demons even, and he's telling them to leave, and you're saying within his words to leave, you're saying in the name of Jesus Christ, spirit be gone, why wouldn't that work the first time? Are they just exhausting the demon, or are they exhausting the actor?
Well, one, I don't necessarily know that's an actor, but I think it's because it's not Jesus himself that is saying the words. It is a representative of Jesus.
Then why does it ever work?
Well, it depends. You have to get the notice of, you have to have the right convictions yourself. And I think the person who's dealing with the possession has to be able to fight it, and I think that here's, I guess, my thing. If the demons and the devils, or whatever you want to call them, were so easy to get rid of that we could just be like, ugh, leave, well, then we wouldn't need to have this conversation. We would never have these problems because it would be so easy to get rid of them. I guess I think of it in terms of story, I guess. Maybe I'm proving myself wrong in this, but that idea of like, you don't want an enemy. If the enemy can just be killed immediately, then they're not much of an enemy. So, if they really are strong, if they really are a force that takes something to fight, they wouldn't just necessarily go away right away.
Either that, or the person there has conviction to these beliefs, but you exhaust those convictions and they're just tired by the 67th time. They're just tired and they're just like, you know what? I give up. He's gone.
I don't know. It's interesting. It sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So
it makes no sense to me that it doesn't work every single time or work no times. And it's not like they're changing the words that they're saying. They're saying the same exact words every single exorcism.
Well, not like, so in the case of Roland Doe, I believe the final exorcism is when they called on the Michael.
Nope, they do it every single time.
Okay.
There's the name of all the saints every single time. And in one other time, Michael had gotten rid of the demon, and then they left. And then he's like, oh no, he's back. So the priest had to come back in to keep going. And then finally, the last one, he was like, no, they're really gone this time. Trust me. I really think it's just wearing down the person that's on the bed. I don't know if it's the person inside that person or if it's just that person. Like, to me, you can't wear down a demon the same way you could wear down a person.
I think you could. I think the demons are not the devil. You know what I mean? Like, that's, angels are not God. They are imperfect beings, and they all have flaws. Obviously, for a demon, those flaws might be maybe even bits of I don't know about goodness, but levity or playfulness. Where they might pretend like they're leaving and then not leave or whatever. But I don't think that, the idea of these beings, I don't know that they're necessarily going to be as strong as the main people, I guess, would be the thought.
Oh, I would believe that the demons were stronger than the main person.
No, I mean,
oh, you mean the devil?
Right, the devil or God, yeah.
I'm just saying that it seems really odd to me that it takes so long to do it, and that would wear down the person. So if the person is going into it saying, yeah, I'm possessed, eventually by the 67th time, they're going to be like, all right, no, it's gone, because they're just done. They're just done with their feeling special moment.
I don't know. I guess to me, that seems, I'm sure that is true. I believe that does happen, but I don't believe that that's with every case. I do believe there are times where the people would give anything for it to end. And they don't even always know what happens.
I don't know. And then in those other cases, I believe that it could be mental illness.
Well, so this leads me to the last point.
Yes.
You ready to move on to that one? Which is that every story that we've listened to is that it's beyond the treatment of modern medicine. Every story we've explored has talked about, and actually all the ones that I've read or talked about, the people have sought out medical and psychiatric treatment first. It's interesting, though. There are plenty of stories of horrible things that have happened to children, especially, and people because of exorcisms, where children have been killed or really hurt by their parents or priests or other, people. But every one of those stories that I've heard, it's that they didn't go to medicine first. They just went right to the crazy believe this is possession, whatever. But a lot of the ones that are all the ones that we've read anyways, they did go and get modern medical treatment first, and that didn't help. It didn't work. And then they resorted to this. So I don't know. That's sort of persuasive to me.
Well, again, you have multiple layers in here
Yeah,
that I would have to
on.
pick apart. So I can't just say, all right, this is my one response to everything that you're saying, because there's multiple layers, and each one of those has its own thing that I would say let's keep in mind. First of all, in any disease or illness, there are times when treatment is going to be effective, and there's times when it's not going to be effective. It could be the seizures, and they're giving them Dilantin for the seizures, and it works 99% of the time, but there's going to be a 1%. It doesn't mean that this is supernatural. It means that they would need to change their approach. And sometimes, even though we've come so far medically, we're not able to treat something that usually can be treated. And it's got nothing to do with demons. This happens with everything. Sometimes you can't treat the flu, and people die of the flu. Sometimes someone gets an eye infection that spreads and becomes something a lot more. People die at the dentist office every single day because they're getting their teeth cleaned, a routine procedure that everyone's done. People die of that sometimes, and it's not because a demon entered their body. It's because science only is 99% there. It's not 100%. And also, too, we're talking about in the 70s and before the 70s, when the medical treatment that they offered was not the same as what they would offer now. I would argue, too, that there are less exorcisms now because there's more medical treatment, and things are treated a lot earlier and detected a lot earlier, especially the temporal lobe, whatever it was, injury or convulsion or whatever. I forget exactly the term. And what's interesting about that is I was actually doing some research about it. To injure that particular part of the brain actually can make you have these delusions of religion being closer to you than it really is. Like you are a part of it. You are an acting member of it. Like you're one of the apostles, or you're Jesus, or you're this, or you're that. Religion is really funny with that kind of thing. And then also, too, they are required by the Catholic Church to weed out everything first that it could possibly be. So they are required to go for medical treatment first. So that's why they have. And I don't know of any case that the church has approved before they were able to see a doctor.
Yeah, I think, well, and I'm guessing that Annalise really, her court case probably made that a big deal. And some other ones too. But I guess I would say one thing would be, I don't know with any of the stories that we heard of them having a head injury before this happened, because I think that would be a logical thing.
Both Roland Doe and Annalise, they did suspect that they had this temporal lobe epilepsy.
I guess that's right. They had epilepsy. So
yeah,
that'd be part of it.
They both were suspected to have that. And that in particular has been known to spark these religious things that are beyond the normal.
Now, I guess I will have to try to channel Vox right now. I think his response would be that those things, maybe they open them up to more of what's out there, as opposed to that it's causing fake things to happen.
Maybe, but we are... So what you originally were talking about, though, is that these people tried to have treatment and the treatment was unsuccessful.
Yes.
What I'm speaking for is that, yes, there are times that me and you might have the same exact illness, disease, whatever, and I might respond differently to one treatment and you might respond differently to another. Or one of us might not respond to any treatment. And it could make something so minute become so severe. There's fatalities in everything. People take aspirin sometimes and they die. There is, I mean, if you look at the numbers of these kind of things, it's alarming how much we don't know.
Yeah. Well, I will say you also mentioned that there are fewer exorcisms, and I think probably overall compared to way in the past.
Yes.
There are, but exorcisms are on the rise lately, like in the last 5 to 10 years than they had been. They had gone down, and then now they've gone back up again.
Okay, so you're saying that they are starting to make a comeback, but they're nowhere near where they were in the 70s and before that. They're not higher than that.
And that's where I don't know. I just know the only thing I was reading is just that they've gone up a lot.
Well,
again.
Just like in the 27 Club where you questioned the data that was real, that was real proof, I'm going to question your data.
Okay.
I'm going to say, I want to see this. I want to analyze it. I want to know in what they're looking for. They might be looking for, in particular, groups that believe in these particular religions. That's another thing that I find very odd. There's never a non-believer. There's never a skeptic that becomes possessed.
Oh, yeah, there are. There's
I have
people
not read
that are,
any.
In fact, so a lot. So what there was one article I know I sent you that was, I guess I would say it's not even necessarily that exorcisms just themselves are up, but people asking for exorcisms is up. And so it is something that the church has to investigate all of these cases, and most of them are not, real.
Well, I would like to check those numbers.
Exorcisms. But was interesting though, I mean, just to think about how people today are less likely to be a part of organized religion than they have in the past. And that a lot of these people that come to the church, they weren't a member of the church. They weren't necessarily religious, but they feel like they've tried everything, and this is the only place that's going to listen to them.
This is one article that you are quoting, so why don't you say the source?
Oh, it was actually in the Atlantic.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a couple other ones out there too, but yes.
But I'm saying that the one that you're quoting in particular in this whole thing is this one article, and I'm just saying that's one person's point of view of how things are. You don't see any of these stories, though, where the person didn't start off having a belief in Christ. I mean, without your article, I've looked for them, and I do not find any substantial story that has any relevance and any backing to it where it is someone that does not first believe in Christ and then has this exorcism where they are forced to believe. Even though the Roland Doe was Lutheran and became Catholic, that really is not that far of a push. Already a Christian, just went from a more laxed belief system than to a more stringent, more rule-based. So these are my issues with it.
There's lots to think about.
All right. Well, we should take another break, and when I come back, I'm going to tell you my stuff. I have something.
Okay. Hey, Pat, fall is in the air.
Ooh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, and that means cooler weather, football, and of course, shopping.
Shopping?
Yeah, back to school shopping, starting college shopping. I got a new job shopping, new season shopping. I just like shopping.
Oh, okay, I get it. Change means time to get some new stuff. And I bet our listeners would like some ghostly gear.
Oh, yeah, great idea. What kind of gear are we talking about?
I don't know. How about some ghostly t-shirts and sweatshirts?
Yeah, and not just ones with the ghostly logo, because those are really cool. But how about also hashtag Team Believer to really show our team colors?
And hashtag Team Skeptic, of course. So we've got men's and women's styles and even kid and baby sizes.
So cute.
It is very cute. And I also added a phone case and a water bottle.
Nice. Where can our listeners get all this great ghostly gear?
That's pretty easy. If you want to get ghostly gear, just go to ghostlypodcast.com and click on merchandise up at the top.
Perfect. Go to ghostlypodcast.com and click on merchandise to get your great ghostly gear.
All right, we are back. So, over the course of these episodes, I've had to take a look at my beliefs. And I've been on the fence this entire month. The idea of exorcisms, they're just so alluring to me. I don't know how I started to really be intrigued by them, but it has been something that I've always been interested in. And I've done a lot of research into them even before Ghostly. And although the very concept is something I'm interested in, I just had to take this step back and look at it in a different way. So what I started to do is I started to say, I'm going to just assume that exorcisms are real. So, okay, exorcisms are real. What else do I have to believe then? So the exorcism's real isn't that hard for me to believe. Even though my idea of the simplest answer is usually the correct one, it doesn't really fit into that belief. But it's a doable thing to just say exorcisms are real. But if exorcisms are real, then we have to say that demons are real. And if we believe that demons are real, then we have to believe that angels are real. Those two have to go hand in hand. So you can see where I'm going on this part so far, right? Mm-hmm. This all is okay with what you're saying? I'm just saying.
We're good. I'm with you so far.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying I agree. I'm just saying I follow what you're saying.
Okay. So I have a very hard time with the idea of demons and angels being real. Because to me, angels and demons, they symbolize the constant fight between good versus evil. And even as far as angels wearing all white to represent that they are good. So going back to the woman in white kind of thing, I think.
I guess.
Always has to come back. So I try to say, okay, what about if they're not demons and angels? What about if they're just possessed by spirits? But that was even harder for me, because how would an exorcism work then? And if somebody was just possessed by a spirit, the symbolism of the exorcism would have no effect on them at all. Also, this spirit would have to be pretty pissed off to do something like that, and at the lengths that they go through. So I kind of ruled this idea out, that it's not just a spirit. It has to be these demons and these angels. And those demons and angels represent good versus evil. So here's my trouble with the good versus evil concept then. It doesn't work. I mean, it works great in storytelling. You know, when you have a villain, you have a bad guy that's equally as bad as that hero is good. But it simply just doesn't work. I mean, I do believe that an act or an action can be wrong. I do believe that. So I'm not saying that all these people that have done evil things are necessarily right. I'm just saying that I don't believe that it can be pure evil. They could be hideously wrong even. But when I refer to this kind of evil, it's more of a secular or a sinister type of evil that I don't believe in. Like in the sense that someone's actions have an evil intent overall, or that a person is literally evil, like pure evil. I think that if we label someone as evil, though, we're almost excusing their actions or putting their actions into something that we can explain and that they might have been tricked or persuaded into it. So we're almost letting them off the hook by saying that, oh, well, they're evil. Saying someone is evil is like giving them a force of almost magical, eternal power, and it operates beyond the reach of trustful negotiation or rational compromise, like Voldemort or something like that. This only really works out in fiction stories. And I believe people do evil things because they either don't believe what they are doing is evil, like they believe they're doing the right thing and they're just misinformed, or that they think that it'll help the greater good. by doing their one evil act. Like, for instance, if you killed one person, it would save all the people that will ever get cancer ever again. Is it worth it? Well, that's an evil act that you're doing, killing the one person, but you're saving all the people that could potentially have cancer. So it's like those kind of things. So when I say that that they don't believe what they're doing is evil, it could be because they are misinformed, like let's say a racist would be, or like ignorant. Or they could have some kind of mental illness that keeps them from knowing the difference between wrong versus right. That's what I'm talking about. So I don't believe in the absolute evil or the pure evil. Therefore, I don't believe in absolute or pure good. I believe that everything is in the middle. What are your thoughts, Rebecca?
That was a lot.
I'm sorry.
A lot in there.
I don't usually have a point in the debate where I can speak my skepticism, and that is it.
So I think there's a couple parts in there.
Yes,
right?
there's more than a couple. Yeah.
More than a couple. Starting just with that idea of pure evil versus, pure good existing or not existing in humans. Because that's a lot of what we're talking about at the end, in the last part. I think in most respects, I believe that. I agree with what you're saying, that sometimes saying somebody is evil lets them off the hook. Like to say that a serial killer, for example, is evil, it almost makes it sound like, well, they were just born bad and had therefore almost no choice but to do what they did.
And then we don't search for the reasons that they did what they did.
But I will disagree a little bit, though I think you kind of came back with this with the mental illness piece. But like, I do think there are people that do things and they know they're wrong.
Yes.
Like, they know they're doing something evil and wrong. They're not doing it because they think that it will help the earth or people or, whatever. They're doing it because it brings them pleasure and they don't care what other people think. But I think that's often due to mental illness or the way they were raised. You know what I mean? Like things that are out of their, I would say out of their control, but they know what they're doing is wrong.
But if you think of someone,
they need to get help for it.
Yeah.
Basically.
If you think of somebody that is pure evil, that means that nothing that they did could amount to any good.
Right.
And that means like I always think, well, their mother probably still loves them. They probably still love their mother, right?
Well, or there's people that they care about that they probably still do decently by, even if they do horrible things also. And I will also say, there's one guy that I listen to, Marcus Parks, that he has a great saying, which is, it's not your fault that you have mental illness, but it is your fault if you don't get it treated.
Absolutely.
So
but then on the other end, the pure good, like I think of the Friends episode where Joey was manning the phone lines for PBS for their sponsorship, and Phoebe was like telling him that there's no good deeds, that everybody does something for themselves in some way. Like, I might give you $1 because that makes me feel good.
I was going to say there's no purely altruistic act, because in the end I think you can, maybe the majority of the reason you're doing it is to help somebody else, but you're still doing it because that also makes you feel good. Yeah. That's just true.
But if there's no pure good, can there be pure evil too?
Right.
So that's another reason why.
Yeah. So I guess I'll come to say, I think I agree with your point when it comes to people.
Okay.
But I think that is different than beings that are beyond humans.
Okay.
I think that the idea of demons and angels are things that the reason they exist is because humanity has a choice in how it is. And they kind of represent those forces that are kind of fighting for our souls when it comes to religion.
So the demons would be ruled by the devil. And
I think typically that's how that's.
But the devil or Lucifer was known as an angel at one time that fell from grace. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't pure evil because he was an angel at one time.
Right. And I think this
symbolized good.
Right. And I think this is why when you talk about why don't they just leave right away? Why doesn't it just take one prayer? Well, because it's complicated. You know what I mean? Like there's these, Vox talked a lot about these tricksters and they're roaming the earth and they're just having fun. And it's not about, the final game hasn't started yet. And it's just at this point, it's all kind of, sometimes the good comes out, sometimes the bad comes out, but it's not like a final thing yet.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just saying that if the devil isn't even pure evil, then can there be pure evil? And without pure evil, can there be something like this kind of possession? Can it be someone that's 90% evil that possesses somebody until they die? This is an evil act that is, I'm sorry, I know you're trying to say something, but I just want to finish. This is an evil act that they have intent to spread the word of the demons or the devil. And in this case, that is a pure evil thing. And can something that's not pure evil exist in that world where pure evil, there's no greater good, there's no greater anything?
But one particular act can be evil, you said. So like a demon could do something that is evil. Doesn't mean that they're fully evil.
That's not one act. That is a continuous act if it takes 67 times to exorcise.
Well, remember though, with Annalise, according
1, 2, 3,
to
4, 5, 6.
Exactly, scary every time. The idea that that actually, remember that that most of the demons were forced to leave, but that actually Mary Mother actually made some of the demons stay in her to kill her so that she would be a martyr
for the greater good.
For the greater good. So there's the, like, we think of, can there be pure good? Well, a lot of times God or the light will do things that to us are bad. It's that whole trolley thing. Like they'll choose to kill the one person over letting the 5 people die or whatever. You know what I mean?
But
it's nobody ever pure
saw,
good.
Nobody ever saw this Mother Mary, or nobody ever seen these demons leaving these people. These are just like Roland, he's gone. They didn't see it leave. They heard a boom, but they didn't see it leave. And nobody saw Mother Mary when she was talking to Annalise. I mean, I'm just like, these things can be made up. They can. And if they can, the more likelihood is that they are.
Does this seem like we should maybe do our final?
Yes. So
this
is the closing arguments part. This is our last chance to convince you to vote our way. We are given 1 minute each of uninterrupted time. We will time each other on our cell phones to keep each other honest. Let me pull up mine, and then, Rebecca, you can start it off.
Okay.
It's going to take me a second. It's asking for my passcode and not just my Face ID, so it is taking a second. You. No, it doesn't, because a demon's possessing me, probably. All right, Rebecca, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, then go.
This has been a difficult topic for me. I've gone back and forth, but I go back to what Pat actually said earlier this episode. If you believe that even one of these is real, then you believe that exorcisms can be real. And as much as I fight against it, and I read these stories that just make me think, no. There's just this part of my heart that believes. There's just this part of my heart that does believe that there is this other people out there, other entities or whatever it is that can cause problems or can go into people. I've just heard and read too many stories that just sound too believable to me. And I guess really honestly, again, it just goes into my heart that I believe that there are these good and evil beings coming, and sometimes they possess us to do good and sometimes bad.
That's it.
I didn't even hear it.
I didn't hear it either. I think I have it silenced,
okay.
But it is.
Well, I was good. I got it.
I showed you it when it was at 4 seconds.
You did.
Just so you know, there's no trickery.
No. All right. Are you ready?
I am ready.
And go.
So, is there a probability that exorcisms are real? Yes. There is a probability. It's probable. It can be. right? But there's not any actual factual evidence that supports this. All of these things are, could they have been? Maybe it's possible. But none of these things actually have any physical evidence that supports them. We're not going on probability. Do you believe that one of these are real? That's what we're going on. And none of these have enough evidence to stand up. Stand up in court, stand up in anywhere. Annalise's case, they didn't rule that there was an exorcism. They ruled that there was negligence.
Oh, dang. Time's up.
All right.
Wow.
I hope that my argument about good versus evil actually did more than my closing arguments there. So thank you so much for listening to our anniversary episode.
Oh, it's been so much fun. We hope you enjoyed this month.
I enjoyed it.
It's been crazy.
Oh, but you know what? We forgot one important part.
What's that?
What is your rating?
Oh,
0
yeah.
through 10. Are exorcisms real? 0 through 10.
Okay. I'm going to say an 8.
You're going to say an 8.
I thought it was a 6 up until my last bit of research. Then it just sped ahead to 8. How about for you?
I'm going to say a 4.
Ooh, that's pretty high for you.
It is pretty high. It's the highest I've ever been.
Yeah.
And it was a 5 until we did The Exorcist. That one is really what pushed me into the other direction.
Okay.
It made me start thinking of other things. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, thank you for listening to our anniversary episode. Please share us with your friends and family, as word of mouth is our best advertisement. I would also like to point out that we are doing another podcast.
Yeah, we've mentioned this before, but in case you didn't hear, we're doing a Walking Dead podcast, the Walking Dead podcast, actually. And it's a fan cast. We do one every week for each of the new episodes. We just took over this podcast this season. So it's fun.
And let them hear your alpha voice.
Mother to mother, you must be punished. No,
See? Yeah.
It's yeah.
That's what we bring to the table.
You've been crossing our borders.
The ghostly borders.
Yes.
If you're looking for another podcast to listen to and you do watch The Walking Dead, we have that other podcast. Just search for Walking Dead DVMPE. That's D as in David, V as in Vox, M as in Mullen, P as in production, E as in empire. Walking Dead DVMPE. And start listening now.
Yep.
We took over this season, so we're responsible for everything season 10 and on.
You got it.
So I think this is a pretty decent episode. How do you feel about it?
I think it's been a pretty good anniversary month.
Right?
We've had 5 weeks in a row of episodes.
Oh my God, I can't wait to take a break.
I am so tired.
But we are going to be recording at the Podfest, so
next week.
it's a 6th week in a row of Ghostly for us. But our next episode will be on John Wayne Gacy, as we've already alluded to, because of Nick being John Wayne Gacy.
Yes.
And because there's some stories around it. And that comes out on November 13th. Remember, if you're in the Chicago area, you can watch us record it live at Lawler's Bar on November 6th.
Yes. Starting at 8 o'clock that night, there's going to be 3 podcasts. We're headlining. We're hosting. It's going to be super fun. We're emceeing.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. We're not hosting the podcast. We're just like emceeing the evening.
Yeah, we're hosting the night by emceeing the podcast.
Exactly. But then hosting our own podcast at the end. It's going to be so much fun.
Do you have anything to add before we sign off here?
I think that's it. Other than, tell your friends and family, hit that subscribe button.
Definitely hit that subscribe button. We need you to hit that subscribe button.
Yes, helps us out a lot.
Yeah, we'd be nothing without you. Remember, stay ghostly.
Bye.